One of the core missions of my channel is to bring light to the independent game company, to highlight games that I've run across that aren't as in the mainstream light as they should be. GameMasters here, and while Dungeons & Dragons is likely going to be the elephant at the table when it comes to role-playing games, as I just mentioned, it's the independent publishers that I really like to support. I was at this year's White River Fan Convention and ran into Alan Wortman, the creator of role-playing game The Chronicles of Ember. We're both fine, neither of us got hurt, but the conversation was fun, and I learned quite a bit about the game, its system, and its future. As an overview, The Chronicles of Ember is a fantasy-driven tabletop role-playing game. It plays in a similar fashion to most other role-playing games out there. Its character sheets make use of the traditional statistics, things like strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. You've got saving throws, armor class, weapon modifiers. It uses the typical role-playing dice, your d4s, d6s, d8s, d10s, d12s, d20s, and all that jazz. So it's not a drastic departure from what you already know. In essence, it's super easy to slide into the groove of how to play, but there are some key differences in the overall mechanics. For example, different weapons have different numbers attributed to them, which denotes its speed factor. Think of that mechanic like this. If you are wielding a dagger and your opponent is wielding a massive claymore, which one do you think is going to be quicker with the slice? Yeah, the dagger. Its speed factor is going to be faster than the claymore. I mean, yes, the claymore is going to do more damage, going to be more powerful, but overall the dagger is going to be a bit quicker. You use that speed factor to help determine whose turn it is as well. Another mechanic in Ember is something called the total attack bonus, or tab for short. This tab number is a representation of your character's skill with your weapon. When you attack, you roll your d20 and add your tab to that roll. Should that number be equal to or higher than your target's armor class, you've landed the blow. And of course, from there you'll roll your weapon's damage dice and add in any bonuses or modifiers. The person that does the prepping, well, in D&D they call it the Dungeon Master, Shadow Dark calls it the Game Master, Chronicles of Ember calls them the Lore Master. But from what all I've seen with this game, as mentioned, it's very familiar territory and should be quite easy for most gamers to pick up and get into pretty quickly. With the overview out of the way, I want to check out how you go about generating your ability scores. Chronicles of Ember uses 8 total ability scores. We mentioned 6 of them a few moments ago, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. You're going to roll a 4d6 to determine those scores, and they all do what you typically expect them to do, but that only amounts to 6. The other 2 are pretty cool, as they kind of give an old-school throwback feel to the game. They are comeliness and perception. Perception is simply a measure of how well you are at observing your surroundings, but also comes into play providing the amount of luck that you've got. A great example of using this ability would be, let's say that you and your party are tracking something through the woods. A perception would come into play in the event that there is a creature way off in the distance. The lore master may have you do a random perception check to see if you either hear it, or notice a small movement from the corner of your eye, or it might even be used to determine if you spot a weakness in your opponent during combat. So if they're swinging a sword and you see a chink in their armor, or if their movement is off, you'll notice that. Comeliness is, and I cannot describe it any better than how Alan puts it out in the page, so I'm simply going to read it. Some people are so beautiful that their face could launch 1,000 ships, while others are so profoundly ugly as to be able to turn around and sink them. Now, I like that description of comeliness, but in essence is a score that denotes your physical appearance and overall attractiveness. While this stat is tied to your charisma, it's what you would use should you want to play perhaps a bard that simply wants to seduce everything from dragons to wooden chairs. Yeah, I've had a bard attempt to do that. But speaking of bards, you're not going to find that class in Chronicles of Ember. Well, not exactly. In Chronicles of Ember, you have 4 archetypes: warrior, priests, wizards, and rogues. Yeah, it's only 4 classes, but should you get crafty enough, you can play a variety of ways just from these 4. Now, races, on the other hand, oh boy, Ember has a wide selection, 18 total. You've got humans, Elkin, Gnoshi, Waterfolk, Rotan, Protean, Jaka, Kobolds, and yeah, you can play as Kobolds in this game, Minotaurs, Alvani, Lugan, Ursa, Sela, Half-Orcs, and yeah, Chronicles of Ember uses halves, as well as 4 subtypes of Trollborn. Now, I'm going to reserve going over all of them in this specific video because we still have a lot more to go, but I really feel that the races in this game warrant their own video. Plus, it gives you a reason to check the game out yourself, which, by the way, can be gotten from DriveThruRPG. I'll leave a link to it down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. But should you want to see a dedicated video to the different races or any other aspect of this game for that matter, let me know down in the comments. But I do want to cover one of the ones that I've not seen in other games, the Alvani. Alvani kind of resemble what we might recognize as the alien known as the Greys, only they're not gray. I mean, they're just not gray. And while they stand anywhere from about 5 foot in height to just over 6 feet, they communicate via psionics and are usually taken aback by races that don't communicate that way. They also eat each other once one of their own has fallen. The Alvani primarily live in and around desert environment, and as such, food is a scarce and valued resource to them, so they use every bit of the body. They'll consume the flesh, even crack open the bones to get at the marrow, but will also use those bones in the making of weapons and other tools. I also want to point out that your race can also determine certain modifiers that can grant to you boosts, and possibly negatives to your base ability scores. For example, the Alvani that we were just talking about, they're going to see a -2 adjustment to their constitution and charisma, as well as a -4 adjustment to their comeliness, but you're going to see a +2 boost to their intelligence. But again, if you want to see all about what all the other races get, I'm happy to cover those in a future video. If you'd like, just let me know down below. Each race has its own language, which could be helpful if multiple players decide to be of the same race. They could, I don't know, converse with each other without others really knowing what it is that's being said. But fret not, because should you not be able to speak the language that others are spitting out, you can still communicate using grunts and gestures. I mean, no, I'm serious. It specifically says that in the rules. Among one of the cooler aspects of Ember is that it encourages you to also flesh out your character's vitals. That is your height, your weight, gender, hair, eye color, and so on. They have a vitals table that you can use, or of course you can just create them to exactly how you'd like it to be. This game also features a whopping 23 deities, which, like the classes, kind of warrant their own independent video. But another mechanic that you'll find in here is something called character points. These are points that you'll accumulate, but you can then spend them on either giving yourself a small amount of experience. Let's say that you're just shy of hitting that next level. You could cash some into some of your character points in to give yourself that little boost so that you can go ahead and level up. Or perhaps you botched a die roll. You could spend some of those character points to re-roll that bastard. While a lot of what we've just gone over is simply covering the basics, I do want to jump for a moment into some of the goodies that this game offers. If you head over to Alan's website, chroniclesofember.com, you'll see that he's got quite a bit of additional material for the game. There's an adventure module, yeah, he calls them modules, which I applaud, called Cookie. It's a horror-based adventure. Another called Mine, but also on the website are some free adventures, Frostwind Grotto and A Dark and Stormy Night. And of course, you can also download the character sheets because you're always going to need an endless supply of those. As mentioned, you can grab this game over on DriveThruRPG. Links down below, but once there, you'll also find the Bestiary, as well as all of the other Chronicles of Ember goodies. The Bestiary is one that I think would also be very fun to do some deep dives into in future videos. So again, if you'd like to see more, let me know that down in the comments. But the Bestiary is very well put together. It includes, of course, the monster stat blocks, but also everything else you might need to know about about that given monster. Plus, it also provides adventure seeds should you want to create an adventure all around any of the monsters in that book. Take the Troll, for example. You can see that it is of chaotic evil alignment, has a nasty slam attack, some pretty kick-ass strength with it clocking in at a whopping 18. You'll also note that down at the bottom of the stat block is a combat statistics by tier chart. This is presented in a way so that at a quick glance you can toss one in regardless of your player's levels, and that monster will match their level. And it shouldn't be too overpowered. Of course, you're always free to throw a monster in that's grossly overpowered if you really feel like being a royal. We can also see that the Troll has a few different adventure seeds, which again is super cool should you want to craft a single adventure around these monsters. Overall, I'd recommend Chronicles of Ember. It's been a game that Alan has been developing for years, and by that I mean he's had it as a homebrew, and his players convinced him to put it all down on paper and make it widely available to everyone. So he did. It's a solid game. The mechanics have just enough crunch, but it's still pretty smooth, and as mentioned, it's familiar enough, which makes it super easy to get started with regardless of your role-playing experience. Let's keep the conversation going. If you'd like to see more videos about Chronicles of Ember, let me know what you'd like to know more about. Talk to me down in the comments, and until next our paths cross, may you not sink any ships. Oh, and watch this video next.